Conservation, as it is in the Western world, predominantly North America, reflects the worldview of settler colonialism, of the Eurocentric picture of the world that separates humans from nature, makes humans superior. So lots of things that go under the umbrella of conservation: reserves, wilderness areas, parks. It's not saying they're bad things at all, but they do perpetuate that ideology. I think conservation served a really good purpose at a certain period of time in history. It was a request for restraint, pushing back against a rapacious worldview. Leave us some bits of that world whole. That's not a very satisfying strategy, and it won't serve us going forward, primarily because many of those places that we managed to set aside we're losing now. Our old growth forests are burning in fires. So that is not a sustainable strategy. We need some other grand image of what conservation might be. There are many possible principles that could ground conservation. The impacts that we see in the world are disproportionate. So social justice becomes important primarily as a way to balance that disproportionality. It's not obvious that conservation, as it has been in the past, addresses that very much. Much of conservation was of interest and driven by people of certain demographics, and they benefited from the way conservation played out. So if you want social justice in the world, I don't think you have a choice but to rethink conservation. It's hard to speak about what wilderness means. And one of the things that I've been doing a lot lately is interacting with Indigenous colleagues and sovereign tribal nations, and I'm struck by how important certain concepts seem to be in the non-Indigenous environmental community, like old growth, like wilderness, that are not a priority for them. It doesn't mean they don't think that there aren't areas that you would visit only in certain ways. They certainly do. But the concept of wilderness carries a really powerful baggage with it. And I worry that it's in some ways a dangerous priority to think if we just preserve enough wilderness areas, we're going to do some kind of conservation work. I mean, climate change is coming after them as well. So I feel bad about saying this, but I feel like it's an idea that has passed its prime. When I think about something like old growth forests, I do find a way to think about that as important in the future of conservation. But I think you have to be more radical in our thinking about purpose. So for me lately, I've been thinking about old growth forests as, well, those are the places where our oldest and wisest ancestors live, who have the most wisdom, and that the wisdom of the world lives in the world, so we wouldn't obviously play fast and loose with those places. We should preserve those places. If you think about the basic rules of logic as the core of our ideas, our logic rules come from Aristotle. It's the law of non-contradiction. It's things are either this or not that. They can't be both. If that's true, there's one truth. We happen to have it. It explains colonialism, for instance. It explains human nature dualism. Indigenous logic starts with the idea that contradictions are real things that can exist in the world. Sometimes things can be dualistic and sometimes not, and maybe even at the same time. So the world is more nonlinear and messy. If you present other ways of knowing as legitimate, then you are challenging the dualism. This is super hard for people to do who are invested their lives into a certain way of knowing, to kind of acknowledge that maybe there are other ways. People have their identities strongly wrapped up into what it is that they do. I'm a scientist, therefore I'm not a something else, as if you can't be all of these things at the same time. So if you stay in the dualistic world, you just see the world in a certain way. The moment you break out of it, it all changes in a pretty dramatic way, and you start to see the dualism as not just, quaint, but dangerous. It's frustrating at times because people sometimes believe that they have quick answers to these things that are actually not answerable quickly. So it's kind of frustrating sometimes interacting with people who they're zealous about what it is that they believe. I've been working as a philosopher in conservation and in public settings for a long time. And at times it feels very comfortable and natural and like I'm needed, and at times it feels incredibly isolated. I'm committed to the rightness of the work.